Hi everyone, it's Helen from Mindgift for those of you that don't know me. But if you don't know me by now, I suggest you need to go back to the beginning of these videos because we're on part 4 now of the instruction manual for the mind. And it might not make so much sense if you've not seen 1, 2 and 3. So what's today? Today is actually about our belief system and how what we believe actually is so powerful that it almost leads to the outcome. If you like, we can almost create the outcome based on what we believe, which sounds all a bit woo-woo and out there in fairyland, but open your mind and listen to me and I'll give you some examples of that, okay? First of all, just to remind you again, we are Mindgift. Paul and I, we're a husband and wife team. We help people with the mind and the body. We're both qualified NLP coaches and I'm a master practitioner and he's a personal trainer. If you want to know more about us, pop onto the Mindgift website or onto our Facebook pages and you'll find all our details on there. So let's dive into today's story because I'm going to, would you believe, tell you another story to start this. And today's story is about the chicken and the eagle. Well, it's actually about a farmer. And the farmer likes, he doesn't get out much. He's got a chicken farm. He doesn't get out much, but he likes to go climbing. And on this particular day, it's a lovely sunny day. And he decides it's all quiet on the farm and he's got a bit of spare time. So he decides to get himself off and go up climbing. And off he sets with his packed lunch and his rucksack and he's climbing up this mountain, and as he climbs up he puts his hand reaching up into a crevice and he feels something. So he pulls himself up to look inside and what he finds is an eagle's nest. Wow, he's absolutely in awe, he's never seen anything like it. And in the eagle's nest is an egg, an unhatched egg, but there doesn't seem to be any mother eagle anywhere around, and he's worried about the egg and he's worried if it's going to survive. And so without really taking too much consideration, before he knows it, he picks up the egg, he's in awe, he looks at it and he puts it in his rucksack and then off he goes, carry on his climbing for the day. And he doesn't really think much about it. He pushes it to the back of his mind. He goes about his day as a lovely day. He comes back home, goes off to have a shower, and when he comes back out of the shower and into the kitchen, he finds his wife unpacking the rucksack and she pulls the egg out. And she says, "What on earth is that?" And he says, "Oh wow, it was something I found today, and there was the mother eagle wasn't around, so I just brought it home to be safe. I'll sort it out." And he takes it into the hen house, and what he finds is Mummy Hen sits on it proud as punch for days and days and days that she's laid this big whopping egg, never laid anything that big in her life before, and over time she keeps it warm and it hatches, and the baby eagle hatches amongst the other baby chicks, and as time goes on the baby eagle grows up amongst the baby chicks. And one day they're out in the yard, and you know how they do the scratching around for worms, and occasionally they try to get off the ground but they're quite heavy, aren't they, and they sort of flap up and then they crash back down. And a shadow comes across the yard and the baby eagle looks at me and says, "Oh wow, what is that bird? That is amazing. The wingspan is phenomenal. I've never seen anything like that before. What is it?" And its baby brother, sisters, chicks say, "Oh, I know, isn't it wonderful? That is an eagle. That is the king of the birds. Wouldn't it be amazing to be able to fly like that?" So today what we're talking about is our belief system. And our belief system is layered on, as I've explained to you, coming through the other sections of the instruction manual for the mind, through our unconscious mind as we learn things under the age of 7 and we download while the car park barrier's open, through our friends, family, aunties, uncles, sisters and etc. teachers. So we learn stuff and we create dot-to-dot programs and experiences with it that we have embed our beliefs. And it's really, really important that we understand what we believe and question whether that be true, Because actually, very, very often over time, we learn something when we're young and we don't ever actually question it again. So if you consider the story about Roger Bannister, and he was the first person, for anyone who doesn't know, that ran the 4-minute mile in the 1950s, which actually isn't that long ago when you think about it, is it? And yet, before he ran it, no one else has ever run it before, and everybody, that's a generalisation, but everybody believed it was impossible. It couldn't be done. And yet he, as a cardiac surgeon, thought, I feel like there's a possibility this could be done. So he had a bit of a more open mind and a different thinking process. And then he trained and trained and trained. So he kept trying different things like Edison to enable to himself to eventually get the result of where he actually made it possible. So that in of itself is actually fascinating. Of course it is. But what is more fascinating is all those other people who had never ever done it before. And within a matter of weeks of Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile, what do you think happened? Any ideas? No? What happened was other people started to smash it, started to be able to do it. When centuries before no one had been able to do it, and all of a sudden in a matter of weeks and months other people started to do it. How on earth was that possible? Because physically in their body not a whole lot can change in that time, can it? And yet what can change is what we believe up here in our mind, because our mind is a gift, isn't it? And what they that now started to think and believe was, wow, it can be done. It can be done. It is possible. And that changed into action, changed the result. Okay. So, and there's a number of stories similar to that. And a famous quote by Henry Ford, who was obviously Ford car manufacturer, and people said, there'd never be a car, didn't there? And he, again, persisted and tweaked and changed. And one of his famous quotes is, if you believe you can, or if you believe you can't, then you will be right. And personally for myself, I always thought when I was younger that I was not very good at gymnastic type stuff, and I'm not very flexible, etc, yada yada yada. I couldn't do a handstand. I could never do a handstand is again something that I used to say to myself. And yet right down now at this moment, over the last 6 months or so, Paul and I have been learning on YouTube different ways in which we can get to do a handstand. And just last week I was able to kick up and do a handstand at the age of 48 against the wall and hold myself up there for a good 15 seconds. Now that is something I have never done before, and I always told myself I couldn't do. And when I started to ask myself, how can I? How is it possible? How do other people do it? And then I started to put that into action and practice and learn. I started to believe I could. And guess what happened? Powerful stuff, isn't it? Really powerful stuff. And a really, really important one that I've always found fascinating in this is the placebo effect. If anyone's not familiar with that term, it is the term for when we do medical trials with medication tablets. So in the pharmaceutical industry do that, we have to have a group that take the medication that we believe is going to perhaps cure whatever the disease or condition is, and then we have to have a sugar pill, for want of a better expression, a pill that is null and void, but we give it to people, and the people in the two groups don't know which one they had. They don't know if they had the real, for inverted commas, or the sugar pill. And what we find invariably in the medical profession, in the pharmaceutical industry, although it's not very widely shared, mind, is that a significant proportion of the time, people who take the sugar pill, but in their mind they believed they were having some kind of cure, actually get better. How does that happen? Because nothing happened in the chemicals, it only happened in their mind. Really fascinating. And if anyone wants to know anything more about the placebo effect and that with reference to the belief system, the person to look up is David Hamilton. He used to work in the pharmaceutical industry and he's a PhD doctor, and he's got some really interesting examples around that. And we find this evidence more and more now when we look on MR scans. I used to be a radiographer, so obviously I know about imaging. And when we look at MR scans, we find that the way the brain lights up, actually we don't actually have to be doing the thing, i.e. walking, for the brain to just light up. If we're just thinking about walking, the same areas in our mind light up when we're just thinking and visualizing as they would if we were actually doing. So this thing about what we believe and how we use our mind again is really, really, really powerful. And so what I want you to do and understand from this is, what limitations are you placing on yourself that you've told yourself to be true and recently you've never checked? So like my handstand one, I just told myself I couldn't do it. I'd stopped trying because I couldn't do it when I was younger and I'd never checked. And now when I've checked, it turns out I can. And a good example is the elephant in the circus. And the elephant, when it's a baby elephant, is tied to a little picket fence and it can't get away from the picket fence because the picket fence is too strong for it, and it tugs and it tugs and it tugs and it learns it can't get away. As it gets older, it remains tied to the same picket fence, and yet now it's 20-ton Tessie and it never tries to pull itself away, when actually in an instant it could pull itself away. But it stopped trying because its belief system has held it in that place. So are there any limitations you're placing on your life? Are there things you're telling yourself to be true and you've never ever questioned whether or not over time that has changed? And I've got millions of stories like this, guys, but I think that's probably enough for you to understand for now the point I am trying to make, which is ask yourself a better question and check whether what you're telling yourself is 100% true. Because if we go back to the story about the chicken and the eagle, you remember that the baby eagle's saying, wow, that's amazing. And its brothers and sisters that are chickens are saying, I know, that is the eagle, the king of the birds. Wouldn't it be wonderful to fly like that? And the baby eagle says, yeah, wouldn't it? I could only dream. And the baby chickens say, but we are just chickens. We can't fly. And so it was that the baby eagle lived as a chicken all its life, because that's all it believed it was. So anyone want any more information about Paul and I, as I say, go to www.mindgift.co.uk. You'll find our email address, our phone number. You can message us on Facebook if you've got any questions about how anything we can help you with, or if you want to work with us directly, we can do that face to face or online. Just drop us a message, and as I say, click like at the bottom, subscribe to us so you get regular updates when we're putting new videos out. We'll be here on Saturday morning doing a live personal training session, and I'll be back next week with part 5 of an instruction manual for your mind. Until then, take care, bye for now.